Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways, and see, and ask for the old paths. Where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your soul. You are now listening to the Old Paths Podcast, hosted by Brother Reggie Paige.
Peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome back to the Old Paths Podcast, aka the OP Podcast. And yes, OP is short for overpowered. And that's not because I am overpowered, but it is He, the Most High God, who is overpowered in the good sense, okay? I know in video game sense we hate OP characters, but hey, I don't hate the OP character or the OP God that we have. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Brother Reggie Paige, and this is going to be a fun episode for me because we get to go back into Booker T. Washington and the character building book. But before we even go any further, please like, subscribe, comment, and share the knowledge with the folks and kin folks. And, understand that this is a viewer-funded show. I don't have any sponsors, nor do I care to have one. So I will leave my Cash App and my Zelle in the comment section. And if you feel the need to give a love offering, so I'm able to do this, full time, especially if you enjoy it, please don't be afraid to do that. Anyway, let us begin. Many people do indeed try and fall into the trap of making life complicated for themselves. And how's that? Well, in life, man is running a race, and in each lane, there are set obstacles for each man to hurdle over. Now, a simple man will simply train themselves to properly hurdle over any obstacles that come their way. The complicated man are those who either feel no need to train themselves properly and try to use their natural God-given talent until that just fades away, or they try to, move those obstacles out the way. Now, the risk of, there is that in a race, you risk being disqualified when you're trying to move, the hurdles out the way, right? You risk being disqualified for not trying to abide by the rules and or while moving those obstacles out of the way to make the race easier for yourself. They end up, getting into the lanes of other runners trying to run their race and making it more difficult for others. Furthermore, they spend more time trying to outmaneuver the rules or forcibly change those rules instead of properly training and trusting in themselves that they are able to run their race and hurdle over any obstacles that are set in their lanes. Now, in Booker T. Washington's day, he was a man that was very much for a simple way of living or valuing simplicity. One of the critiques of Booker T. Washington is that his emphasis on simplicity could be interpreted as accommodating, right? Or being complacent to the existing racial hierarchy. However, that is very much of a misinterpretation because what Booker T. Washington was pushing for were two things. The first thing was the upliftment of the so-called black community, despite forced racial segregation laws being an obstacle in the lane of the so-called black community. Secondly, he was pushing for the philosophy of racial reconciliation and not guilt. He didn't want to guilt the white man. He didn't want to guilt no man. He just wanted to, reconcile the differences and understood that, wounds heal over time, and we had to let patience have a perfect work. You can't force people to like you. When you force people to like you, you just end up causing more tension, and you're not letting patience have a perfect work. Booker T. Washington had a very keen and firsthand understanding of the obstacles that faced the so-called black community. First off, this man was born a slave. Second, he started a school in Tuskegee, Alabama, where he dealt with, racism. He dealt with segregation. So, it's not like Booker T. Washington was like, W.E.B. Du Bois. He actually saw and lived in and helped build a community that thrived while he was alive. Now, he pushed forward the idea of living a simple life because it is a virtuous thing to do that builds character within an individual and eventually within a healthy community. Again, individuals build the community, not the other way around. Again, in our day and age, we believe that a community is going to build the individual. That don't work. When you have a community filled with individuals that are productive, you will have a productive, thriving community. But when you have a community with individuals who are, bumming them out, and not being productive, well, what kind of community you're going to end up having a unproductive community. Simply put, if one wants to achieve progress, don't complicate things. Make life simple for yourselves, and you'll see how effective life can be. Now, how does one live a simple life? The first way is developing a habit of working hard. In Ecclesiastes, the 9th chapter, in the 10th verse, it states, "Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, no device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, whither thou goest." See, there's nothing wrong with a little hard work, right? There's nothing wrong with working hard. See, when you have a reputation at work, at your school, at your church, that you are a hard worker or you have no problem working hard, benefits will eventually come your way, right? So at a job, you can get a promotion or a raise for your hard work, more opportunities, right? At your school, if you work hard, you can finish early, right? For me, I was able, or almost able, I just chose not to finish the semester early because I was a very diligent, hardworking student. I was always on the dean's list. I had a scholarship, academic scholarship, right? You could be on the president's list, right? You could also make great connections because you build a great reputation of working hard. And people, after you graduate college, they're like, "Oh, we want you to work for us." You know what I'm saying? So, and then, at church, again, the brethren, they'll start to view you as a man of, strong character because you want to work hard. You're a hard worker. Now, the second way of living a simple life is by being more self-reliant. A lot of times when we grow up, we are used to especially all the way through college pretty much, for someone to do things for us. A real man and a real woman knows how to survive and will learn how to support themselves without asking for too many handouts. I'm not saying that you're not going to have help. Okay? You're going to have help. You can't do it all by yourself, but they know how to support themselves without asking for too many handouts. Think of it like a relay race, right? Back in high school, I was a track star. That was my race. That was my sport. I was the anchor of my track team, right? If you don't know what the anchor is, it is the last leg. It's the last person to get the baton, right? So you have the first leg, the second leg, the third leg, and the anchor, right? The fourth leg. So think of it being self-reliant as a relay race on the track. Each team member receives the baton at a specific point, relying on their own speed and agility to carry it forward and pass it to the next runner. Just like in the race, self-reliance means taking responsibility for your own actions and decisions and using your own skills and resources to achieve your goals. Each runner is accountable for their own part of the race. They can't rely on their teammates to make up for their mistakes or lack of efforts. Similarly, in life, self-reliance means taking ownership of your own choices and sometimes other people's consequences. See, I've run track and been the anchor, and it sucks when one of the first legs slips. I don't know how many times when we were in state, the first leg will, he'll be in the blocks and he'll slip. And he has to now try to make up all that speed, all that time that he would have had perfectly if he didn't slip out the blocks. Or if the second leg, if he misses his mark, because again, when you're waiting for the baton, you can't just, stop and, wait for him to hand it to you. You have to kind of pick up speed. And if you're trying to win the race, you have to hit a mark. So you start running, and before he even gets to you, usually for us, we set a tennis ball, right? We count certain steps. I think for me, it was like 8 steps. And I placed a tennis ball there. And when he hits, and when my third leg as an anchor, when my third leg hit the tennis ball, that's when I start running. And, while I'm running, I'm waiting for the baton to get passed, because I'm not at full speed yet. But nonetheless, sometimes when you don't hit those marks, the person behind you, the previous leg, he ends up crashing into you sometimes, right? Or risk dropping the baton, right? So it can mess up everything. Again, to be successful, To be successful in a relay race, each runner needs to train and hone their running skills. Likewise, self-reliance requires you to actively develop your knowledge, skills, and abilities to navigate life's challenges. In the scriptures, it talks about, what it takes to have a healthy church. You got some teachers, right? Some preachers, some people who, everybody has their part. That's what I really mean. Everyone has their part. Everybody, at my church, we have musicians, plenty of musicians. We have preachers, we have teachers, we have cooks. We have many different, pieces that, contribute to building this strong foundation at our church. And again, that's what it means. But again, every individual has to hone their own skills, develop their own knowledge, skills, and abilities to navigate life's challenges. And during the race, right, going back to the relay race, runners need to trust their instincts and make split-second decisions. In life, self-reliance requires you to believe in your own judgment and make choices based on your values and goals. While each runner is responsible for their own part, they are still part of a team. Meaning, self-reliance doesn't mean going at life alone. You can still seek help and support from others, but ultimately, the responsibility for your actions and decisions lie with you. The ultimate goal of the relay race is to reach the finish line as a team. Just like the goal of self-reliance is to achieve your personal goals and aspirations through your own efforts and determination. And we find this principle in Romans chapter 14, verse 12. So then every one of us shall give account of himself to God. Again, I can't speak for my pastor. I can't speak for sister so-and-so or brother so-and-so. I have to give an account for myself. You know what I mean? Now, the last way in living a simple life is through developing practical skills. The word practical means capable of practice or active use, opposed to speculative. Now, many people tend to be very theoretical and not practical. Look at our colleges today. How many people major in just, useless majors? No disrespect, gender studies, right? What do you need to know about gender studies? Oh, well, it's the history of, the woman. All right, then be a history major. It's just something so simple. You know what I'm saying? But many people tend to be very theoretical and not practical. Many people assume that I'm very theoretical. I'm poetic, but I'm not a theoretical person. I like learning about theories pertaining to history. Don't get it twisted, but I'm very much of a practical person, simply meaning I'm one that's very grounded in reality. Practical people are very much grounded in reality. They have a clear understanding of their resources, limitations, and the world around them. They don't have these hoop dreams or get swayed by impractical ideas. They focus on solving problems with realistic solutions, considering costs, benefits, and long-term consequences. Practical people see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow. They're adept at problem solving, thinking creatively within constraints, and finding workable solutions. As a result, they avoid dwelling on negativity or blaming circumstances. They believe in taking responsibilities and making the best of any situation. They make decisions based on logic and evidence, not emotions or impulse. They weigh the pros and cons carefully before taking action. For myself, my logic is in the scriptures, right? 2 Timothy chapter 3:16 says, all scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instructions in righteousness, right? So everything that I try to do is going to be based off the scriptures, right? In the beginning was a word, and the word was with God, and the word is God. Talk about Jesus Christ. And in the Greek, and I'm not that type of person that really cares about, the Greek, but in the Greek, the word means the word in the Greek means logos. Where you think the word logic comes from, right? The word, Jesus Christ. I digress. Practical people appreciate efficiency and organizations. They streamline their process and avoid unnecessary complexity or waste. One thing that practical people are accused of is being cold or emotionless. As for myself, I know for me, many people think I'm mean. Growing up, many people just thought I was just the meanest person or I was just a stone cold person. And, to an extent, sure, I guess. But I know for myself, I didn't lack emotion. In reality, I understood the value of emotions and intuition. And that's what practical people do. I'm not saying I'm perfect, by the way, but practical people tend to understand the value of emotions and intuitions, but they balance them with reason and practicality. They value relationships and connections, right? For me, I'm a very loyal person. I value relationships. I really do. And when people start to be fake, I keep a keen eye on that. When people betray me, I keep a keen eye on that. And that's what practical people do. They approach each relationship that they have very realistically. They'll set up proper boundaries and avoid unrealistic expectations. I'm not going to expect, if I know somebody is untrustworthy, why would I trust them with, why would I trust them, period? I'll be friendly to them, but I'm not going to, put my trust in certain situations, right? Again, overall, they are bounded, are rooted in reality. They are very much grounded in reality, the practical man. Now, with all this being said, when one values simplicity in their life, it actually helps build much character within themselves. First, it builds moral character. When one learns how to be practical, a hard worker, and self-reliant, then they tend to become more humble, more responsible, more honest, and disciplined. Furthermore, living a simple life leads to practical success. When you work hard for something and are practical about things, a strong foundation will start to be built and grow. Right? Specifically in Booker T. Washington's case, since he's the main focus of this podcast, a strong foundation, living a simple life will build a strong foundation for economic success, and social advancement will be built, right? But another thing that valuing simplicity does, it starts to eliminate a bad name, or in Booker T. Washington's argument, stereotypes, the negative stereotypes that plagues the so-called black community. It actually fosters racial progress and reconciliation. Let me give you an example. Now, when I was in high school, I had a homeboy named Alex, and his reputation was despised by many people, especially the teachers. Now, I remember when probably when I was a sophomore in high school, we were in class, and it was like one of the first weeks of class, right? And me and Alex had class together, and, the teachers are doing the roll call, and the teacher, called, Alex. And, when he said here, the teacher stopped, looked at Alex, and said, oh, yeah, we talk about you. We know about you. We're going to have to be careful with you. And, Alex was like, what are you talking about? Now, why did the teacher say that? Well, Alex was the type of guy that whatever he thought, he'll say. So if he thinks you're stupid, he's going to tell you that you're stupid. And he was a very blunt guy. He was also lazy. He didn't care, right? That was his personality. He just came off as a guy that just didn't care. Was he smart? Absolutely. He was very smart. Was he funny? He was hilarious. But that always got him in trouble because, he had this personality where he just kind of didn't give a crap. He really didn't give a hoot. And so as a result, his schoolwork, faltered. And people thought he was mean, and people didn't like being around him, especially the teachers, because he would talk back to the teachers. And so, after that moment, it seemed like he decided to, make a change and make an effort to proving everybody wrong, and erasing that, stinking savor, and make his name a sweet savor, right? And so what did he do? So all of a sudden, I remember Alex, he started to go to Subway every morning. I was like, why are you going to Subway? He was a big guy, not chubby, but, he, for his, size, he was kind of big. And so he said, I'm starting to eat healthier now. I said, okay, for sure. Then all of a sudden, he started to eat healthier every day, and then he started to go to the gym every day. So all of a sudden, he's getting, built. Right? And I'm like, wow, like, hey, man. He's like, hey, Reg, I'm going to the gym every day, Reg. I'm going to the gym every day. I was like, for sure, good for you, dog. And so now he's becoming real buff. And then the next year, junior year especially, all of a sudden he's taking AP classes and honor classes, right? Proving that he's smart, and he's finishing on the honor roll list, the dean's list, and all that stuff, right? And I remember, and I was really cool with the teachers because I was involved in many organizations, such as the poetry club and the football team, track team, and I was also the president of my class and stuff. And so I was very close to the teachers, and teachers they talked about how surprised they were with Alex. They're like, "Hey, Alex really really is a surprise. We thought he was hopeless, but this man really proved us wrong." And he began to eliminate. Well, he actually just eliminated all those stereotypes that it went from having a bad name to his name being a sweet savor amongst the people. Now, of course, he had people that always hated him. Like, there were just people that just ain't gonna like you no matter what. You can prove to them that all those stereotypes, all those rumors, the bad rumors about them aren't true, and they just gonna hate you because that's who they are. They just have hate in their soul. But my man Alex, shout out to him. He really worked hard. He worked hard. He built discipline. He practiced self-reliance. He practiced the simple things in life, right? By working out. Simply, I'm gonna change my health habits. I'm gonna eat better, and that's what he did. I'm gonna start working out every day, and that's what he did, right? He didn't need to watch 10,000 different workout videos. No, he just started going to the gym and working out and disciplining himself to do it every day, right? Making himself self-reliant, right? And again, he's working hard at it, and all of a sudden that carried over to his schoolwork. Him working hard in the gym carried over to his schoolwork, carried over to just everything in his life. It just streamlines down in every aspect in life. Because if you're a hard worker in the gym, you're going to probably be a hard worker in school, right? If you're self-reliant in the gym, you'll be self-reliant in school. You know what I'm saying? And so, that's what Booker T. Washington was trying to get at, right? First, when one works hard to prove that they are not what people stereotypes them to be, they eventually earn the respect and begin to challenge those negative stereotypes by simply proving them wrong. The truth is, every stereotype has truth to it, right? Going back to Alex, those stereotypes that people had about him was true. It wasn't that, they were lying. What they saw, what they heard, it has some truth to it. But if you show and prove and accept those challenges that those stereotypes are not true and to prove them wrong, well, it kind of forces people to change, right? Haters will always hate no matter what. But those who are just ignorant cattle and they just, follow the herd, I hate Alex because, I hate black people because, everybody else hates black people. Well, you prove them wrong, all of a sudden it starts to challenge them and they begin to change. They just start to begin to change slowly. Again, you have to let patients have their perfect work. It takes time for people to change, especially a rooted mindset, right? And that's all Booker T. Washington wanted from the so-called black community. There were truth to those stereotypes in the so-called black community then and even today. However, Booker T. Washington's philosophy was that, is what my boy Alex applied to himself, which was work hard, learn practical skills that the world needs and serve their fellow man, and learn how to be accountable and self-sufficient, not relying on other people to solve your own problems. Solve it yourself. Learn how to solve those problems yourself. And if you have to ask for help, ask for help. There's no shame in that. And these are principles we can use for ourselves today. Again, brothers, and sisters, don't complicate life. Understand there is much virtue in simplicity. And without further ado, let us read the speech Booker T. Washington told to his kids, to his students at Tuskegee, called The Virtue of Simplicity. I hope that you all pay strict attention to what Mr. William H. Baldwin Jr., who recently spoke to you, had to say. In the few words that he spoke, I think he told you the platform upon which this institution has been built. You will remember that he laid a great deal of stress upon the importance of this institution remaining simple, of keeping that degree of simplicity and thoroughness that it has always possessed. It is true, that in the last few months, the institutions has come into a great deal of prominence in its meeting with what the world calls success. But we must remember that very often it is with institutions as it is with individuals, success may injure them more than poverty. Now, this institution will continue to succeed, will continue to have the goodwill and confidence, the cooperation of the best and wisest and the most generous people in the country, just so long as its faculty, its students, and all connected with it remain simple, earnest, and thorough. Just as soon as in any department there are indications that we are beginning to become what the world calls stuck up, just so soon will the people lose confidence in us and will fail to support us. And just so soon will the institution begin to decay. We will grow in buildings, in industries, in apparatus, in the number of teachers and of students, and in the confidence of the people, just in proportion as we do what the institution has set out to do. That is, teach young men and women how to live simple, plain, and honorable lives by learning how to do something uncommonly well. When I speak of humbleness and simplicity, I do not mean that it is necessary for us to lose sight of what the world calls manhood and womanhood, that it is necessary to be cringy and unmanly, but you will find in the long run that the people who have the greatest influence in the world are the humble and simple ones. Now, we must not only remain humble, but we must be very sure that whatever is done in every department of the school is thoroughly done. Any institution runs a great risk when it begins to grow larger in numbers or larger in any respect. It can succeed then only in proportion as those who have responsibilities are conscientious in the highest degree. We can succeed in putting up good buildings only in proportions as everyone performs well his part in the erection of each building. We can succeed only in proportion as the student who makes the mortar, who lays the bricks, put his whole conscience into that work and does it just as thoroughly as it is possible for him to do it. If he is mixing mortar, he must do it just as well as he can, and then tomorrow must do it still better than he did it today, and the next week better than he did it this week. The student who lays the bricks must learn to lay each brick as well as it is possible for him to lay it, and then do still better work on the morrow. We must remember, too, that we have a certain amount of responsibility to care for our buildings, and that a great deal of interest should be taken not only in putting up all our buildings thoroughly, but in looking out for their preservations as well. We must see to it that the buildings which the students have worked so hard to erect, and which generous friends have so kindly enabled us to secure, are not marred in any way. You must make new students know that this property is yours, and that every building here is yours. No student has any right to mar in any way what you have worked so hard to erect, and your friends have been generous enough to provide. If you find a student drawing a lead pencil across a piece of plastering which you have put on, you must let that student know that he is destroying what you have worked hard to create, and that when he destroys that building, he is destroying something which students yet to come should have the opportunity of enjoying. We want to be sure in every industry, in every department of the institution, there is simplicity, humbleness, thoroughness. Whatever is entrusted to you to do it in the industrial departments, in the classrooms, be sure that you put your whole heart into that thing. We do not expect to have fine, costly buildings, nor do we want to have them. But we do expect to have well-constructed buildings and attractive buildings, and if we can go on in this simple, humble way, the time will come when we shall have all the buildings we need. Just in proportion as our friends see that we are worthy of these good things, they will come to us. We want to be sure also that in no department is there any wastefulness. We must try to make every dollar go as far as possible. Quote, we must stretch a dollar, as I have heard Mr. Baldwin say, until it can be stretched no further. Now, there will be waste unless we put our conscience into everything that we do. There will be waste in every boarding department, in the academic department, in the industrial department, in the religious department, in all the departments about us unless we put our conscience into everything that we do. Let us be sure that not a single dollar that is given to us is wasted, because the same people who give to us are called upon every day in the week, each year, to give hundreds of purposes, and they have to choose which they will support. They must decide whether they want to give to this cause or to that cause, and they will give to us if we make them feel that we are more worthy than other similar institutions. We want also to be sure that we remain simple in our dress and in all our outward appearances. I do not like to see a young man who is poor and whose tuition is being paid by someone and who has no books, sometimes has no socks, sometimes has no decent shoes, wearing a white, stiff, shining collar which he has sent away to be laundered. I do not like to ask people to give money for such a young man as that. It is much better for a young man to learn to launder his collar himself than to pretend to the world that he is what he is not. When you send a collar to the city laundry, it indicates that you have a bank account. It indicates that you have money ahead and can afford that luxury. Now, I do not believe that you can afford it. And that kind of pretense and that kind of acting does not pay. Get right down to business. And as I have said, if you cannot do up your collars well enough here to suit you, why, get some soap and water and starch and an iron and learn to launder your own collars and keep on laundering them until you can do them better than anybody else. I'm not trying to discourage you about wearing nice collars. I like to see every collar shine. I like to see every collar as bright as possible. I like to see you wear good, attractive collars. I do not, however, want you to get the idea that collars make the man. You quite often see fine cuffs and collars when there is no real man there. You want to be sure to get the man first. Be sure that the man is there. And if he is, the collars and cuffs will come in due time. If there is no man there, we may put on all the collars and cuffs we can get, and we shall find that they will not make the man. When you have finished school, after you have gone out and established yourselves in some kind of business, after you have learned to save money and have got a good bank account ahead, if you are aware the laundering is not sufficiently well done to suit you, why perhaps you can afford to send your collars 40 or 50 miles away. But as I see you young men, I do not believe you can afford it. And if you can afford it, why, I should like to have you pay that money for a part of your tuition, which we now have to get someone else to pay for you. You want to be very sure, too, that as you go out into the world, you go out not ashamed to work, not ashamed to put in practice what you have learned here. As I come in contact with our graduates, I am very glad to be able to say that in almost no instance have I found a student who has been at Tuskegee long enough to learn the ways of the institution, or a graduate who has been ashamed to use their hands. Now, that reputation we want to keep up. We want to be sure that such reputation as this follows every student who goes out. And then be very sure that you are simple in your words and your language. Write your letters in the simplest and plainest manner possible. Who of you did not understand what was said by Mr. John D. Rockefeller Jr. when he spoke from this platform a few evenings ago? Was there a single word or a single reference or figure of speech that he used that you did not understand the full force of or did not appreciate? Here is a man whose father is perhaps the richest man in the world, and yet there was no tomfoolery about his speech. Every word was simple and plain, and everybody could understand everything that he said. He used no Latin or Greek quotations. Some people get the idea that if they get a little education and a little money ahead and can talk so that no one can understand them, they are educated. That is a great mistake because nobody understands them, and they do not understand themselves. Now, the world has no sympathy with the kind of thing. If you have anything to write, write it in the plainest manner possible. Use just a few words as possible, and as simple words as possible. If you can get a word with one syllable that will express your meaning, use it in preference to one or two syllables. If you cannot get a suitable word of one syllable, Try to get one of 2 syllables instead of 3 or 4. At any rate, make your words just as short as possible and your sentences as short and simple as you can make them. There is a great power in simplicity. Simplicity of speech, simplicity of life in every form. The world has no patience with people who are superficial, who are trying to show off, who are trying to be what the world knows they are not. You know, you sometimes get frightened and discouraged about the laws that some of the states are inclined to pass, and that some of them are passing. But there is no state, there is no municipality, there is no power on earth that can neutralize the influence of a high, pure, simple, and useful life. Every individual who learns to live such a life will find an opportunity to make his influence felt. No one can recognize in any way permanently hold back a race of people who are getting those elements of strength which the world recognizes, which the world has always recognized, and which it always will recognize as indicating the highest type of manhood and womanhood. There is nothing, then, to be discouraged about. We are going forward, and we shall keep going forward if we do not let these difficulties which sometimes occur discourage us. You will find that every man and every woman who is worthy to be respected and praised and recognized will be respected and praised and recognized. And hey, that's just a low-down gospel truth. Thank you for watching. We'll continue next time with more Booker T. Washington for the Old Past podcast. And again, if you enjoyed this show, please do like, comment, subscribe, and share with your folk and kinfolk. And please donate. Send a love offering. Why not? And if I have any last words, value simplicity. There's nothing wrong with living a simple life, right? And also, remember, the truth shall make you free. May the God of all knowledge have mercy and grace upon you all. Peace.